My dad was not mommed up in any way. He wasn't a gangster. He went to Wentworth School of Technology. He was a smart dude. He was the only one in the family to go to college, and he got a scholarship to do so, and he did really well at college.
What
So
What do
when
you
he
think,
graduated, he was working really, really hard. The first, God, it's going to be 20 years of me actually being conscious of what my dad did and how he did it. He worked really hard. He traveled a lot, but he was really good at it, and he made a decent amount of money for back then. How did he snap? Is a really good question.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah. What was the change?
Um, there was always this side of my dad that you thought was innocent, but it was, I can get a good deal. I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, and that was always in the realm of jewelry. My dad always knew the guy that owned the jewelry store because he introduced himself to him and could always claim to get so much money off of what you would pay retail. And it was just, you go to dad, just go to my dad, and he just loved it. He'll tell you until his dying day that he wished he was a jeweler, that he didn't want to necessarily be a salesman as much as he loved the idea of selling shiny things to people. He just glowed doing it. And the job that he had as a salesperson, where he met people in bars all the time, or he had to make connections, he had a huge network of people that he could also sell wholesale jewelry to. So he always had kind of people on the inside. And one day he met our co-defendant. And our co-defendant was part of I guess you would call it, was part of the landscape at the time, because there was no Jared, there was no Hellsberg Jewelry that was one of the franchises out there. There was no Long Jewelers that was big on the Northeast. They were just mom and pop jewelry stores. You know them as you were growing up. Hey, where do you go and get jewelry? Well, go down to this store, and you don't remember the name necessarily unless it was a Jared, and you just didn't see that back then. Right. And jewelry salesmen would drive around and try to sell like anybody to some of these mom and pops little stores. And those are the people. That was our co-defendant. That's what he did. So he had one of 4 companies in the country that would import and export jewelry at the time, because that's hard to do, and we don't make it. We don't mine a lot of that stuff out of this country, so we have to import it and export it in and out of here, and bringing it in is not easy. So there were only 4 companies that I knew of at the time that was doing it, and one of it was called Citra. And Citra had just a huge catalog. So if you had a Citra catalog, it was a catalog of rope chains, Figaro chains, link chains, collateral, everything you could possibly imagine in the jewelry world is a catalog. And you would say, hey, I'm opening a jewelry store. I need 50 of these. I need 70 of these. I need, you were building an inventory, which is really hard to do if you're opening a jewelry store. You have to have a good relationship with those people. And that's what my co-defendant did. And that's one of the people that my dad ended up getting good deals from. And they knew everybody in the industry that was capable of bringing stuff into the country. And one guy was saying, hey, I'm going to buy a bunch of diamonds from Israel. At the time, you could only buy diamonds from Israel. So De Beers was the only monopoly on the planet that controlled every diamond mined anywhere. They were like the biggest mob. If you think of the Italian mob, De Beers was huge. They ran a conglomerate of thugs that just thumped you as soon as you discovered a diamond mine. So all diamonds went into Israel, and they were cut there, they were graded there, and you could buy for $800,000 a box of them. And in that $800,000 box, there was a varied quality of diamonds. If you had a great relationship with them, you got good diamonds. If they didn't like you, you would struggle. You want to get rid of your inventory. You could have a jewelry store full of stuff, right, but selling it's a different thing.
Oh yeah.
So to bring diamonds in, you had to go through this company in Israel. And this guy said to my dad, I'm bringing this huge lot of diamonds in. Would you invest? And everybody that in that circle invested in it. And my dad was one of them. So My dad apparently was ripped off by this guy and wanted to go after him.
Hmm. How did
So
he get robbed? Just the guy didn't pay him back?
I just didn't. Yeah, everybody invested all of this money so this guy could bring these diamonds into the country, and this guy was like, it didn't happen, but everybody knew it did.
Wow.
So my dad was just outraged. He was just outraged, and at first he had just employed my brother's help. I'm little. I'm only 150 pounds, so my brother just a mass of muscle. Both my father and my brother are big guys, and he was just asking my brother to go wait behind this guy's house so we could set him up in a way that when he came home, my brother would go after him. But I didn't know anything about it until a couple of days before Christmas. My brother had made 2 or 3 attempts to do it by himself, but he couldn't. He's like, I need Bryan. So they drove home one night, and I'm laying on the couch, and it was almost like I knew, because my dad's like, I'm like, where are you guys going at 8 o'clock at night? And my dad's like, Kev's helping me do some filing at the office. And I'm like, my brother's doing filing? What do you mean? Carrying around the files from room to room? Because that's all he's good for. He ain't filing shit. And I don't know, there was just something about it that was kind of, it seemed like bullshit to me. And they came home and they said, hey, this is what's going on. And my dad was very sincere about it. And my dad was always very calm, cool, and collected. And to see him in a place that was panicky, almost kind of desperate, and he was pissed. And he's like, would you help? And I said, absolutely. That's one of the things that when I think back on, I was like, I wish I took more time to kick that around.
Yeah, think about it a little more.
I really wish I was like, okay, hold on. I need some charts. I need some graphs. Where's the construction paper? Because I just remembered having such an allegiance and such a loyalty to my old man and my brother that I just instantly said yes. And I'm sorry, from the second it happened, I was like, wow, that's pretty fucking cool. Somebody fucked with us, and my dad's willing to go after him. And I think that more than anything else is what my dad left where he grew up, that attitude of, it wasn't tied down, so we took it, but you took my stuff, fuck you, I'm coming after you. You know what I mean? It's just backwards ass, not right, but it was a code, I guess. And
so you ended up going with them, and how was this your first one? How did it go down?
The plan was to stand behind this guy's house, and this guy had a house that was separate from the garage. And we were going to stand on it was the right side wall. We're going to stand there because his house was, if you looked around the wall, his back door was right over to the left. So we were going to paste ourselves against that wall and just sit and wait for him to pull up, because he had a motion camera. So a lot of people say, how do I stay safe? Well, you want to have a motion detective camera to detect other stuff, but you don't want it to light up your presence going into the house. You know what I mean? If I'm a burglar, I'm like, oh, there he is. Okay, he's got the stuff. So a lot of people ask me how to stay safe. Well, first is to always stay unpredictable. We're pasted against this guy's wall, and I'm just surprised none of his neighbors looked out their back door and said, Jesus, what are these two guys? Because it was a stark white wall in the middle of winter with a full moon out, lighting us up, and we were in all black.
Yeah, pretty obvious if someone were to look out there,
We stuck out like sore thumbs with sore thumbs. And it was set up so beautifully because we used our co-defendant, who was somebody else in the industry who had invested money with this guy, who was just supposed to accept that this guy was lying to everybody. But he still needed orders for Christmas. So our co-defendant called this guy and said, hey, I need about 50 grand worth of stuff, which we knew would be in this guy's case when he pulled up. So we knew something was going to be in there, because you don't want to do this to somebody and run away and open up and there's a tissue box in there. Not like there's an amount of money that you could walk away with and be, hey, it was okay what we did to that guy. But the plan was to just have my brother go after him, grab him, start hitting him so I could grab the case and we could just get the hell out of it. And that's what we did.
And so, after you did that, what was the reaction between you, your dad, and your brother, or and your co-defendant?
When my dad was across the street in a stolen car. So in every single robbery, we always had a stolen car. And it was usually a car that we had rented a couple of weeks before. And my dad just made a key for. And so we would go on the lot the night before, take that car off the lot, use it in the robbery the next day, and hopefully either dump it or return it to the lot before anyone knew what was going on. This is a different world for rental cars. And now I would like to think we had something to do with the fact that they keep them behind fences and shit now.
Yeah,
That's probably our fault. Sorry. Can't just go in there and do that. But back then it was really, really easy, especially in southern New Hampshire, which is where my dad lived. And he was across the street of a highway that was divided by there was a guardrail in the middle of it. So we wanted that because we knew if he was on that side, nobody could get in their car and chase us until they went the other way and turned around. So we had it planned out so we could get out of there pretty quick. And my dad was on the other side of that road. So I had the case. I'm faster than my brother, so I bolted across it. And I would like to say I hurdled over those guardrails. I don't know. I might have tripped once or twice, but then I'd gotten back of that car. My brother got in the front seat. I got in the back. And the plan was to always put me in a different car very close by and have me leave. So if my dad and brother got caught, if the cops had responded or anybody in the house had called, I would still have the stuff. And that's what we did. We split apart. And but before that happened, I jumped in the car and my dad said, you know, I love you guys very much. And that was it.
That was it.
Yeah, that was huge. Well, it was huge for me to hear because it wasn't that my dad didn't say it. It was just that it was a couple of days before Christmas, so I thought we had saved Christmas, and it was just never seeing my dad, who had always been so calm, cool, and collected, that emotional about what we had done. And I would like to liken that to that's when he snapped. That's when we started doing this all over the place. But when all this was said and done, when everything was done, all 22 robberies were done, and we were all sitting in prison, and my brother and I lawyered up, it was then that we found out that my dad had done a robbery prior to us ever being involved in that first robbery.
So he did do one then.
And we didn't know, man. We had no idea. And it was prior to us getting involved. And the reason we were involved is because that first robbery failed.
Oh,
so
okay.
It was almost the same setup. My dad said he was going to dress as a security guard, and you can hear this on my podcast. I do an episode with my dad describing it, saying that they set this guy up to come to a store in a mall that was a jewelry store, and they were going to sell to him. And this guy was supposed to have a suitcase full of stuff. And my dad walked up to him dressed as a security guard. I have no idea what that means, because you got to understand that was back in the early 90s. You couldn't just find a security outfit somewhere or anything that looked, my dad probably was just dressed in black and thought he looked like a security guard, but he maced the guy. He maced him right in the face. The guy falls on his case, and my dad couldn't pull it out from under him. So my dad ran away, and it was failed. And when he drove away, he said, you know what? I need help. And for his second, which was our first, he pulled us in. Yeah. And he'll tell you on the podcast he did it because who else can you trust but your son?
Hey, thanks for watching this clip. This clip came from one of my interviews I did in the past. Please hit subscribe if you want to get more clips like this. Also, if you want to watch the full interview, I'll put a link in the description. Or you can hit the button on the screen to watch the full interview.